By changing your mind, you change everything. Think about it. By changing your mind, you will change everything. Madam Toastmasters, Mr. Tabletop Master, fellow Toastmasters, and honored guests. My favorite, the famous cat in the box. The cat is both alive and dead within the box. It's not until you open the box and observe him do you realize he is dead or alive in this realm. Let's think outside the box and keep an open mind. Parallel universes or multiverses, that is the topic today. Sounds like science fiction, doesn't it? Gateways, doorways, a matrix, doppelgangers. What if I told you there's proof? Your challenge is to listen with an open mind. Case 1. I believe everyone in this room has experienced this at one point or another. Deja vu. Where you're walking along, and all of a sudden, in the peripheral vision, there's that prickling sensation of something familiar. Or you walk into a room that you've never been in before, yet you have that sense of familiarity. Case 2. Now, I don't know about you, but I do like to travel. Been through customs several times. On 1954, a gentleman who was on business, it was the first of 3 trips that he normally takes on a yearly basis to Tokyo. He had a meeting the next morning. He was going through customs, and the usual questions were asked. What are you here for? Business. How long do you plan on staying? Just a few days. Where are you from? Torrid. Torrid, they said? I've never heard of that. He looked at them. Well, it's been around for over 1,000 years. So they got into a big debate of where Torrid was. And he's like, it's the country between Spain and France. It's been there for over 1,000 years. They haul out a map and they present it to him. Andorra. He got very agitated. All his documentation, driver's license, passport, all was issued from a country called Torrid. They called the company that he had the meeting with the next day, and the company had never heard of him, nor the company he worked for. They called the hotel where he said he had reservations booked well in advance. They did not have any reservations for him. The bank account that he was traveling with did not exist. They put him up in a hotel room, heavily guarded. All his documentation were sealed away in security at immigration. They figured, well, it was late, we'll sort it out in the morning. They went to go and pick him up. They looked inside. Nobody entered or left the room, but he had gone. He was not there. He had vanished, simply vanished. They went back to the security office to pull out all the information. It was all gone too. There was no trace of the man in 1954. Case 3. This one is a favorite. 2008, Miss Garcia. She went to bed. Nothing unusual. She just went to sleep. Woke up, and then she felt a sensation of something that wasn't quite right. She couldn't place her finger on it at first, but then she noticed the man that was sleeping next to her was the boyfriend she got rid of 6 months ago. The clothing she was wearing, she didn't remember putting it on the night before. The bed sheets were slightly different as well. So, when confronted the boyfriend that she thought she had kicked out 6 months ago, he was like confused. No recollection of this outing. She also had started dating another man 4 months. Yet, when she did investigate him, he did not exist either. She went to work, a company she worked at for 20 years. She did indeed work there. She had her friends. However, she did not work in the same department that she remembered working in the day before. Thank you. They decided to take her to the hospital to see if maybe she was on drugs. Maybe she got drugged by accident or whatever. They ran the drug test. There was no evidence of drugs. The doctors could only conclude that it was some kind of form of amnesia. She went to a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist concluded that it was some kind of hallucination brought on by stress. Case 4. Brother and Sister Bear. How many people remember the books? You may have read them when you were younger. You may have read them to your kids or your grandkids. There's those wonderful stories of going back to school, being part of a team, manners. But how was the name spelled for Berenstain Bears? Was it A-N or E-N? My son came home with a reading project a few years ago, and I was very happy to help him out with it because I loved the books, but I clearly remembered it being spelled E-I-N. However, when I went and Googled it, I was wrong. It is spelled A-I-N. Case number 5. The Mandela effect. This is another one that can be a little confusing. Nelson Mandela. Did he die in prison or was he released? If you ask thousands of people, they will tell you he died in prison. They remember the video clips that were on the news. They remember the widow, heartfelt speech, the riots, the funeral. However, he didn't die in prison. He was released. He was reunited with his wife, and there's a movie about his experience. So how about those thousands of people that remember something that was different? I too remember hearing that he had died in prison because Day was the one saying, oh look, he's getting close to being released. And I'm like, didn't he die? And he's like, no, of course not. So is it a mass false memory? Are thousands of people having the same hallucination? Multiverses. They're little bubbles or pockets of space that can brush up against each other, transferring atoms. Reality is merely an illusion, albeit a persistent one. Albert Einstein. My challenge to you is to question the reality you see around you. Reality is a question of perspective. Madame Toastmaster.